Hey, Olive, Arlo, and Frank. We're going to jump into the book of Exodus again, into chapter 13. Now, we saw leading up to this that the Lord had brought 10 plagues on the Egyptians. And then the final plague was the death of the firstborn. And finally, Pharaoh said, "Leave. Just leave." And we're going to see that even though he says that, he goes back on that. But not in this chapter. So that's like a spoiler alert for things to come. And then we had chapter 12, which was the Passover. They put the blood on their doors and the Lord passed over. But every door that didn't have the blood on it, the Lord took. He killed the firstborn males of the children. So your oldest son, boom, gone. And the animals that you owned. And now the children of Israel are leaving. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Set apart to me every firstborn male, the first offspring of every womb among the Israelites, whether human or animal, it is mine." So he just took the firstborn, and now he's asking the Israelites to do that same thing for him, to give their firstborn of everything to the Lord. And we'll see. I mean, Christians believe that Jesus is the Son of God, so he would be the firstborn. And he sacrificed his own son on the cross. And we're sons of God, so he's the firstborn. And he belongs to his Father. And therefore, we become children of God. Moses said to the people, "Remember this day on which you came out from Egypt, from the place where you were enslaved. For the Lord brought you out of there with a mighty hand, and no bread with yeast may be eaten." And we remember that. They ate matzah. They made bread without yeast in it. And the thing was, they were in a hurry. They didn't have time to make bread and let it sit there and proof and rise. They had to just make it, eat, and split. On this day in the month of Abib, you are going out. When the Lord brings you to the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, then you will keep this ceremony in this month. For 7 days you must eat bread made without yeast, and on the seventh day there is to be a festival to the Lord. And that's what they do every year. There's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and there's Passover that's concurrent with it. I believe it's the last day of the feast. Bread made without yeast must be eaten for 7 days. No bread made with yeast shall be seen among you, and you must have no yeast among you within any of your borders. You are to tell your son on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. It will be a sign for you on your hand and a memorial on your forehead, so that the law of the Lord may be in your mouth. For with a mighty hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt, so you must keep this ordinance at its appointed time from year to year. And the children of Israel have been rebellious as a people throughout history. And we're going to see that when we get into the what do they call? They're like the historic. Well, this is a historical book too. The chronologies of the kings. Books of Samuel and Kings and Chronicles, and that they do atrocious things. They worship foreign gods. They do all kinds of stuff. We're going to see as they get out in the wilderness, they're supposed to be making a few-day trip, and they're out there for 40 years because of their rebellion. But one thing that they have done is they've kept this feast. Before the first day of the feast, they actually go through the house and sweep it out to make sure that there's no yeast there. And then they only eat matzah bread, no leavened bread, for the 7 days, and they have the Passover. And they've continued that, whether they were within what he wanted them to do, or they were totally rebellious. When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, then you must give over to the Lord the first offspring of every womb, every firstling of a beast that you have. The males will be the Lord's. Every firstling of a donkey you must redeem with a lamb, and if you do not redeem it, then you must break its neck. So you can't sacrifice a donkey. There's probably people in the world that eat donkey meat, but the Israelites didn't. And so when you sacrifice an animal, it's a big barbecue. You throw some of the things out. You either burn them up or take them outside of the camp and bury them and all that. But most of the animal goes on this giant grill. It's an altar, but it's also a giant barbecue grill. And they grill all this meat. And the people that bring it to sacrifice it, they eat some of it, and the priests eat it, and the other Levites get to eat some of it. So it's saying, instead of taking the donkey there and sacrificing the donkey, you take a lamb. But if you don't want to do that, you could just break the donkey's neck and kill it. Every firstborn of your sons must be redeemed. You must redeem. In the future, when your son asks you, "What is this?" you are to tell him, "With a mighty hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, from the land of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to release us, the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of people to the firstborn of animals. That is why I am sacrificing to the Lord the first male offspring of every womb, but all my firstborn sons I redeem." So you're not sacrificing a human. It's not a human sacrifice. You redeem them. It will be for a sign on your hand and for frontlets on your forehead. For with a mighty hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt. So now we're going to see how God leads them out into the wilderness and why he takes them out into the wilderness, because there's a quicker way to get there. And he's going to address that and how he's going to do that. And it's one of those things I wish that I could be a time traveler and go back and just witness for a day, because you have to be there the day and the night to see this. And you'll know what I'm talking about in a minute, because it would just be amazing. Like 6 million people walking through the wilderness, and the wilderness is like a wide open desert, and being led by God and how he led them. When Pharaoh released the people, God did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was nearby, for God said, lest the people change their minds and return to Egypt when they experience war. Now they are going to fight later on, but the big thing is now they're in a close proximity to Egypt. And very soon they're going to start going, why did we even leave? We should go back. We're going to see that. So God's like, now if I take them this way, it's quicker to get there, but they're going to have to fight the Philistines. You know, when I was a kid, you didn't want to go through any other neighborhoods, because, especially if the people didn't look like you, if they were like black or Puerto Ricans or something. If you were just some random kid walking through a neighborhood, people knew you weren't from there, and they'd come up and want to beat you up. Like, what are you doing in our neighborhood? People were territorial like that. I had to fight my way out of things like that. In fact, what the cops would do is, if you were a problem kid and they, had you on their radar because people were calling and going, yeah, that kid's doing this and doing that, he's always trouble, they would take you and put you in the back seat of the cop car and take you like 2 or 3 neighborhoods away and drop you off, and then you had to make your way home without, getting beat up or worse. So God brought the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea, and the Israelites went up from the land of Egypt, prepared for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the Israelites solemnly swear, God will surely attend to you, and you will carry my bones up from this place with you. They journeyed from Succoth and camped in Etham on the edge of the desert. So now they're right there at the desert. And we'll see that they're going to be surrounded before you know it. Now the Lord was going before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them in the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. So this giant cloud that it didn't blow over the people, so they didn't get enveloped in the cloud. They could all see it, like 6 million people could all see this thing and follow it. And by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. I just can't imagine what either of these looked like, but they must have been spectacular. So that they could travel by night. He did not remove the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. So they're going to be out in the wilderness for 40 years before they finally go into the land of Canaan. And this pillar of cloud, pillar of light, are going to be ever present, either one or the other. I don't know if they have a changing of the guard of this, but I think they're the same thing. One just turns into the other as the sun goes down or the sun comes up. But that's just me. So anyway, let's get ready for the next one, chapter 14. We're going to see them cross the Red Sea. Until then, peace out.